What's going on, guys? This is Appalachian ADV Rider coming to you with my very first knife review. I'm calling this a knife review. All my other videos were unboxings and first impressions, and especially with the first impressions or unboxing, you're seeing my reaction to a knife for the very first time. So sometimes I might ramble a little bit. So my goal in this video is to try to keep it short and sweet. This is the Microtech SOCOM Bravo. It's made in China by Reich, a knife company. So getting that right out there to begin with. I believe it's their first product ever made, not in the United States and not in-house. Just to summarize it, this knife is really great. It's great quality. And you actually, before I go any further, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, leave a comment below, join me on Facebook and Instagram under Appalachian ADV Rider, trying to grow the channel, and I am close to 500 subscribers, so that's actually, I feel very good about it considering how saturated the market is, and it's hard to attract an audience, and I'm glad I was able to attract so many people so far. And I am approaching this knife review thing from a different perspective. You're not going to see a lot of stats from me and comparisons. I hate, when they do the knife comparisons. I just start zoning out. So my focus to you guys is to try to deliver to you, how do I think that knife fits an intended use? All the intangible aspects of a knife, which is, what I'm trying to bring to you. So I'm going to keep that short. And I am completely unsponsored by anyone. This has all been on my dime. And so you are getting a completely unbiased opinion. So I think that's pretty valuable. And, I like larger, heavy knives. So if I say I love this knife, then and you like lighter, smaller knives, then even then you would know that it's not a good knife for you. So reviews, I think, are important when you get to learn the person and what they like and how they're viewing this knife. So I'm going to review this knife as a tactical knife, which is to say, I'm not going to criticize it for being something that it's not supposed to be. It's like saying, this convertible two-seater convertible car stinks because you can't fit a third passenger in it. So, anyway. So that's where we're at. Thanks again for joining me, and let's continue with this video. So here is a controversial knife, and it's really, I think, my second Chinese knife I ever bought. So I consider this knife because I have the SOCOM Elite, and I like that knife. I wanted a tactical knife, and it was the only tactical knife I had, but I hated that it was a tip down. So this one is a tip-up knife, so I got it. And so that's why this knife is in my possession. And again, I'm reviewing this as a tactical knife. So you will not hear, in this video, I'm not going to talk about the differences between the Bravo and the Elite. I'm going to leave that for another video. So this is a production version of the SOCOM Alpha, which is a custom knife made, in the United States many years ago. And it's not supposed to be a copy of the SOCOM Elite, but there's so many similarities. I'm not going to get into the politics of that. In my mind, this basically is a SOCOM Elite, except that it's got different materials and the pocket clip's in a different spot. Because really, there's not a whole lot of other things that are different. So anyway, I got this knife because it's a beefier, bruisier knife. I don't know if you can see that thickness of that blade. This is like almost 1/4 of an inch thick, this blade stock here. And it was a Tonto, which would have a great, a stronger tip, I would believe. And this is serrated, and it could do other tasks other than slicing. So, this knife is really not a very great slicer. As I was saying, this knife is on bearings. It's got a great action. The blade comes perfectly centered. Nice whacking sound. Listen to this. This is a milled pocket clip. I'm going to talk more about I'm just going to point out some stuff here. These thumb studs are also blade stops. So when you open it up, you see it bangs up against the side of the frame here and gives you a great lockout. There's absolutely no play in this knife, up, down, left, right. I mean, it is lock, vault, solid. So like I said, this is a tip-up carry knife. Look at that action. So this knife actually carries pretty well in the pocket. So yeah, this is a M390 blade. Of course, you got all this, Microtech branding here, which is very common. So you have, the serial number, the date it was born, blade steel, the name of the company, the name of the product, and then that's the Reich insignia there. This has a steel lock bar insert. So this is a frame lock. This one has a bronze pivot collar where, you can get one that's in blue. And actually, I thought I would like the blue, but this is what was available in this serrated edge, and I like it. This knife has big hardware, so that's a T20, Torx bit for that, and then these are all T8. But when you take off this scale here, there's 3 more T8s on either side. So there's a lot of screws. Those T8 screws are holding in this back spacer here. So if you take this knife apart, there's just going to be a lot of screws to it, but they're big screws. So that's good. So let's just talk about the knife generally speaking, right? This is a big knife. It's a 9-inch knife. It's got a 5-inch handle and a 4-inch blade. It's man, it fills your hand. I'm not going to compare it to other knives because if you know knives, then you know that a 9-inch knife is a big knife, right? So there's no hiding that. Though it surprisingly carries very well in your pocket. I love this tip up. The thing about the Elite is I wanted to carry that knife, but it was tipped down and I just didn't like carrying it. So it's a great knife, but I'm not carrying it. And so this thing is a big knife, like I said, 4-inch blade, 5-inch handle, 9-inch altogether, and it weighs 5.7 ounces, which surprisingly, it's not as heavy as I would think, and I think maybe part of it is because of the carbon fiber here. So there's no internal milling or very little milling inside the titanium scales, but they had to mill out this area to put the carbon fiber insert, so there is milling on top. Just well done. I mean, all the tolerances on this knife is tight. It's this backspace is beautiful. The only thing with the knife is that it's a little sharp. I'm gonna go through the pros and cons of that. So I'm gonna hold off on this thing. So, what is the primary use of this knife? Like, why would someone buy this knife and carry this knife? Or I'm gonna put it, why did I buy it? I think it's somebody that wants something more of a hard use and tactical. So the reality of it is this is not a great knife if you're using it just for knife things. And what I mean by that is like cutting paper, cutting cardboard, just slicing things, a couple of things here and there. This is not a great slicer. The ergonomics on this knife is not perfect. So you wouldn't get the knife. I wouldn't recommend getting this knife for that. I got this knife because if I wanted a bigger, bulkier knife, I didn't have one. I started off collecting knives with this gentleman's knives because you could hide them in your pocket. What I learned over the years is the difference between carrying a gentleman's knife and a bigger knife is really not a lot in terms of sacrifice, because I basically devote a pocket to carrying my knife. So if it's small or big, the only thing in that pocket is that knife. So I can carry a larger knife. As long as it carries well, I can carry a larger knife and not even notice it. So in my collection, I started moving over to bigger and bigger knives. But I'm riding a motorcycle quite a bit, and I am exploring. I'm going into homes, abandoned buildings, and walking through the woods. And hiking. And while I'm not paranoid at all about anything, I like being prepared. And, having a knife that's designed to survive, like to be used as a prying tool, to have some strength, where you could, like baton with this, or have significant strikes or blows against the structure of this knife, and it could survive, short-term, use like that. I wanted something that would fit that bill. So I got the Elite, never carried it, and then I got this Bravo. And I'm telling you what, I've been carrying this knife a lot. It's actually taken over my pocket. And I'm gonna get to that. So we're gonna review that later. All right, so I would recommend this to a person that wants to have something tactical, and I don't really know necessarily what that means per se. I'm not a tactical person, but I'm gonna interpret that as a harder use knife, and something that would be stronger in strength and sacrifice cutting edge for that strength in the structure, in between the blade and the handle. I mean, this strength is very important in a folding blade, right? So to get that, you've got to have more substantial mechanism here. So who would I recommend this to? I would recommend it, like I said, people looking for a tactical knife, given whatever environment they expect to be in. They want to take something that's a little more tactical. People that like to be prepared for non-knife tasks, like chopping wood, or, not baton, not chopping wood, but batoning or prying. And with this blade, with this serrated edge here, it could do a little more than slicing. It'll be able to cut more. And, in environments that I'm in, I like having that ability. I've never used it, but I don't really use my knives a ton. I mean, I carry them, and, I'm just not, in a situation where I'm cutting a lot of stuff. So, I mean, does that make it ridiculous that I'm buying a big knife and prepared for other things? I mean, you can make that judgment. I don't really care. I like it. That's extremely satisfying. I actually, hold a knife and play with the knife, and so to me, it's more than just, being prepared for something. Just look at this knife. It's just beautiful. This Right company did a really good job in the fit and finish. This is a little sharp. There's some edges here that exist. I actually took a Dremel and some compound, and just lightly went over some of the edges here, take off some of the corners. And, I've been carrying a lot, so, some of them have rounded. So it's a tactical knife, so, I'm not going to say it shouldn't have any sharp corners, but, I'm not wearing gloves with this, and I think the way it's designed, I can definitely get a grip on it without it being as pointy as it was in certain spots. So I would also recommend, this to somebody that's looking for a bigger and heavier knife, right? And someone that likes a fidgety knife. Look at this. This is great action. I would even recommend this to somebody who wanted to carry the Elite but doesn't like tip down. So, and this is the reason why I bought it. I bought the Elite to fill this role that this knife is in, but I didn't like its carrying position, so I got this instead. So as good as that knife is, and in many ways it's superior to this knife, I just didn't carry it, so that made it useless. Now, this is not to say that this knife doesn't have its problems. So let's go through some of the cons. The biggest con to this knife is its ergonomics, and that's going to be a couple of things added together, but I'm just, the one big con is the ergonomics, and one of them is this clip. It's just way high. I mean, it's once it's on your pocket, this area is great. There's like a lot of space in there, but the ramp is the wrong angle. It's very tense, very tight in here. To get it in your pocket, you really have to struggle to like get it over the, over the material and get it in there and pull it out. You got to, go in there and pull out with your finger and then pull this knife out. So the in and out of the pocket on this knife actually sucks. I'm just going to say it. It just sucks. And then it's so tall that it's really kind of in your hand. So pocket clip sucks in terms of in and out of your pocket, and also in the ergonomic department. And then I've decided, I know what's wrong with this knife. This area right here just absolutely sucks. So these two scales are sharp on the inside, and then also this lock bar is straight and flat. And if you notice, this side is curved. And so your hand falls right here. If you look at where your fingers are falling, your hand falls right here. Well, this spot here is where I have the most strength in my grip, and it's just on this very flat surface, and it doesn't feel good at all. If they had put a little curvature in that, would have solved, it would have made it, that would have gone a long way to comfort. So major ding in my perspective on that. And then this whole area here, it digs into your hand. Now, having said that, this is a tactical knife. I mean, if you're going to, it sucks as a knife. So if you're going to get this and thinking, well, I'm going to cut with this all day long and I want it to be comfortable, then you made a mistake. Does that mean that this couldn't be more comfortable? Of course not. I mean, it could be a little more comfortable. What I just told you right here would have made a huge difference. But anyway, so that's the con, sharp edges. I also hear that this bead blasting here can rust. I don't have any experience with that. This is M390. It's not supposed to rust. But when you see in some of these rust tests, the blade material might be rust proof, but because of the lasering, the etching, sometimes it'll bleed from that area, and maybe from debris left over when they were etching it, and maybe the same thing with the bead blasting. I don't know, but it's been reported that there could be some rust on this bead blasting. So I'm not here to say that that's right or wrong. I'm just here to say that that's what the reporting is. So what's the pros? I mean, the pros are it's got big hardware. So even though there's a lot of it, it's got a big hardware, and the Torx bits fit well inside the Torx, the screws here. Sometimes they just barely go inside. The well is not very deep. So in this, the well is very, very deep. So that's great. This is, using high quality materials. It's, I mean, that carbon fiber is just beautiful. I don't know if you could, the camera does it justice, but this is a really nice looking knife. And with the titanium, and it just looks bad, to the bone, in my opinion, with, the blade shape, the fuller here. It feels, it feels comforting to know that, if I needed to have something, that I needed all the capability that I think I would have it in this knife. It rides really well in the pocket. It's a great fidget knife. I mean, that's just great. And, the lockup is solid. I mean, there is absolutely no play with this thing. It's just amazing. Excellent fit and finish. I mean, there is no spaces here. Everything comes to a nice point. There's no gaps. There's no, where they meet, one side's taller than the other. There's none of that. I don't know. This is just a really good knife. So I'm going to try to wrap this review up here, but when do I carry this knife? Well, first of all, I carry this knife when I'm dressed for it. So it is a bigger, larger, heavier knife. So I guess there is something that you can wear that, you wouldn't be able to fit this in. Like me, typically, I'm always wearing something that I can carry a knife like this. I mean, whether it's cargo shorts or, jeans or whatever, I can always fit a bigger knife. But I guess if you couldn't fit a bigger knife, then you wouldn't take this knife, right? I also take this knife when I don't expect to cut a lot of stuff, right? It's not a good knife. It's a sucky knife. If you're going to cut stuff, open boxes, whatever, carpeting or, do some work, it's just not, the geometry of this blade is really not that great. I mean, it's thick behind the edge. So I wouldn't do that. But I would carry it when I'm in an environment that's not under my control. And basically that's when I leave the house, essentially, right? You never know what's going to happen when you leave the house. So when I'm outside, I'm not expecting to cut a lot of cardboard or paper or open envelopes. And so I don't need something that can slice open boxes and packages. I mean, if I bought something in the store and had a bubble wrap, this would definitely cut it. I mean, it's got a great piercing tip here. And yeah, it's certainly, sometimes it chews through something more than slicing it, depending upon, how thick the material is. Because this knife gets really thick behind the edge real quick. So it's almost like a wedge, right? Which is good in some situations and not great in others. And that's why I got the serrated edge. I figured with such a thick blade, the actual angle of the steel here is much, much thinner in the serration part than in this part, in the straight edge part. So, I mean, I think this is, when I leave the house with this knife, I feel pretty good about it. I mean, I just don't like putting it in and out of my pocket. It can snag, pulling it out. And that kind of concerns me a little bit. Not that I'm sit there and I think about tactical situations, but, the reality of it is you want to be able to put it in and out of your pocket, right? So I don't want to sit here and try to convince you that, I mean, you do you, right? But, again, do I want to have like a little dainty knife that I can slice an envelope open with when I'm outside, and that if I needed to open a window, if I car crash, or this doesn't have a window, glass breaker, but I mean, you could bang this and act like a little mini hammer. It's just, you got a lot more capability, right? And that's why I carry it. So when do I carry it? When I leave my house. When I'm in my house, I mean, I'll carry like a little slicey knife, right? I mean, a quiet carry, or I got some Spydercos. There's beautiful, thin, flat grinds, real tall. It can cut things just looking at it, right? My Spidey Chef, I love that knife. Real sharp on that one. I'll carry that knife around, or even my neck knife sometimes. I don't even, But do I need this home? Absolutely not. But when I leave the house, if I'm hiking, if I'm riding my motorcycle, if I'm walking down the street, and I want something that even just when you deploy this thing, I think the sound has a signal in itself, right? I don't know if that picks it up, but if I heard that, I'd be like, okay. I also carry this knife when it's damp outside. So I'm not saying, hey, it's raining outside, which knife I'm going to take? I'm going to take this one. But I am saying is, if it's damp outside, there are some knives I won't take, right? This is not one of those. This would go into that rotation. If it's raining out and I'm concerned about dampness or whatever the environment, this is one of the knives I would consider taking, because it could survive that. If you take a blade with M4 steel out there, some other high carbon steel, you're gonna have some rust eventually. All right. Well, listen, this has been fun. So would I recommend this knife? I'm not a tactical guy. I can't tell you that, this knife compared to all these other tactical knives, that this knife is so much more superior to anything else in that tactical world. So having said that, just evaluating this knife on its own merits, this is a great knife. I mean, I think I paid $360 for this one because of the serration. I think that was a little bit more, right? But for that money, which is a lot of money, absolutely, don't get me wrong. It has a higher, material. It's got, carbon fiber and titanium. It's got some nice weight to it, which I love a knife with weight to it. It's got size to it. I love a knife with size. So, I mean, if you want a bigger, heavier knife, then definitely, go with this. If you like light, petite knives, then don't listen to me. So I'm evaluating this from my perspective. So would I recommend this to somebody that loves a big, beefy knife that, wants some, to carry a knife that has some capability, that's a lock, bolt, solid, that has amazing action. I mean, look at this action. I mean, just amazing. That's nice to look at. I would absolutely recommend this knife. The only thing I really don't like about it, the two things, the biggest things, is the ergonomics, right? The sharp edges, and particularly this area right here. So I don't love that, but this is not a hard use. I mean, this is not a knife that you're going to be using a lot. So for that, it is what it is. And again, I don't know, what knife is better. I'd say the Elite is definitely better in that regard. Like, if just from the ergonomics, the Elite blows this thing away, right? But I don't carry that knife, so it doesn't matter, because it's a tip down, and I don't like it. All right. So what I was saying is, what I don't like is the ergonomics. This clip sucks in the hand, and also sucks to get this knife in and out of your pocket. It rides real well when it's in your pocket, but getting in and out is a pain in the butt. And holding it, this area sucks, and even the inside of the scales here sucks. So this whole side really stinks, quite honestly. But other than that, yeah, I mean, would I recommend it as a tactical knife? Absolutely. So all that stuff I just told you about how it feels is not going to matter, because you're going to pull it out, you're going to use it, and it's going to be over in seconds, right? So, if you used it for 5 minutes, would it hurt your hand? Absolutely. But good luck. I mean, if you're going to go in the woods and like chop stuff, and you're going to use it in that regard, then you wouldn't use this knife. You take a hard, fixed blade, right? But this is, like I said, a tactical knife. You go out, and that sounds so bad, right? Tactical knife. It's I'm going to call it, this is a hard use knife, let's say, all right? So if you want a hard use knife that is urban, there we go. This is a hard use urban knife. So, yeah, if that's the role you're looking for in a knife, here you go. I would highly recommend this one here. All right, thank you for joining me. Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what, it's a better tactical knife, or, leave a thumbs up on this video, subscribe to the channel, please. Let me get to 1,000, right? And then after 1,000, I want to get to 2,000. 2,000 is the magic number. So I've been at this for a little while, and I got almost 500. So, and I feel very, very blessed, because the market is definitely crowded. And so thanks again for joining me. Please subscribe to the channel. Leave a thumbs up. Join me on Facebook. Join me on Instagram. Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you like about this knife or don't like, or what are your other tactical options out there. All right, thanks again. I will see you soon. Bye.